Hello, this is Crochet Basics with Jolie, and in this episode I'm going to show you how to make a fun bag for spring, summer, the beach, whatever. And for this one, you need everything, so to speak, okay? So I'm doing it in cotton, and this is what I got. Normally I don't buy these, but it was a good deal, so I said, all right, I'll give it a shot, So I'm going to use one of these, not the whole thing, of course. All right, an H hook, which is a 5-point millimeter H, US size is 8. Cotton yarn, because we're going to take this bag everywhere with us for the season. A stitch marker or a few stitch markers. Measuring tape, Primo, anything with yarn, anything with string, I always tell you. Okay, and straps. These are strap adjusters because this is a backpack, and also lining, which is optional, but this one I'm gonna line, and I'm gonna show you how I line it because this one's a little tricky. So what else? And possibly a scrap piece of yarn so that we can also, scrap yarn lengthwise or what have you is always good to keep a couple different lengths of scrap yarn, just if you're not chaining or slip stitching or what have you. It keeps your place. It also keeps your place without making big loops. Sometimes when you are using a stitch marker and you're doing a slip stitch and a chain and all that, or a couple of chains, it makes bigger loops, and you could totally see where your seam is or what have you. So a scrap piece of yarn will keep your place without, leaving big loops or any kind of thing like that. All right, so let's get this going. And I've never used this one before, so I have no idea, and it doesn't even tell you the size hook or what have you. But best bet is an H or an I for a bigger loop. So with our cotton yarn and our H hook, we're gonna chain. So if you do a slip knot, I do not, and we're chaining 40. Alright, so from here you'll skip the one closest to the hook, and you'll work a single crochet all the way back to where you started. At this point we're gonna do at the end, your first chain that you made, you're gonna go in and do 2 single crochets into that ending loop. So 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and then go back in and do 2 more single crochets in that corner loop. And then you're gonna pick up the bottom of the chain. So you're gonna pick up, I don't know if my light seems too bright. It's not really showing up on my monitor, my little screen. Okay, so you'll go in and you'll work the bottom of the stitches from the single crochet. And now what I tell you with this is, instead of going into just this one little string, I usually go into the center where the 2 braids, pieces of the braid overlap a little bit, so that it just gives you a little more meat, I call it meat, a little more to work with, a little more strength, So instead of going into just one loop, just that's your one loop, I usually go in right to where it overlaps. So you'll work that till you get to the end, and then we'll add in some extra stitches on the end. And this counts as a full row. The row is all the way around. So I'll be there soon. Alright, so when you get to that chain where you first started, you're going to go in and right where that chain is, so you'll do 2 single crochets, chain 2, and then you're going to pick up that chain, the first chain when you made the first row, when you first started rather. Alright, so for here we're going to slip stitch and chain 2. So that's what it looks like, our first row. This is what it looks like. That's what it looks like on the corners. There's your seam, all of that good stuff. So from here, let's switch to a we chain 2, so let's switch to a half double crochet. Sorry, hit the camera. Alright, so you're wrapping. Well, I'm still zoomed in. Okay, so you'll work every stitch and you'll half double crochet in your chain 2 space at the end. Okay, so this is, I got 40 across the row, and this is my chain space, and I'm going to go in and do 2 half double crochets right there, and then continue. Oh, I'm sorry, 3. I'm sorry. 3 half double crochets, and then continue on with my half double crochets. Okay, so I'm at my corner where I started, so I'm going to do my 3 half double crochets. Alright, so I come up with 86 for that row, and I'm going to add a stitch marker in, and I think I'm going to use my scrap yarn for this. Not such a tremendous piece because that's crazy. Alright, but just the scrap yarn, put it right in between your last stitch made and then the stitch for the new row, and you'll just crochet right over it. And try and make sure it's a contrasting color. That's, you know, so that it doesn't get lost in your stitches, because you need to see it. You need to see your rows worked, right? And as you go, you'll, you know, after I get to the other side, when I finish that row, I'll flip it over and flip it back. But I'll get there when we get there. We'll get there together. All right, so I'm going to skip over here, and I'm going to work 1 half double crochet all the way around for the next row, for row 3. And your corners will bunch a little bit, but that's how, you know, that's how this one's made. So for the next 5 rows, you're going to do 1 half double crochet all the way around. You should have 86 stitches. That's what I have. Hopefully that's what you have. So you can pause or come back or what have you. So for row 9, you'll get your stitch markers out and such. And if, not if, because we're making this a backpack, so you'll have your strap adjusters, so that we can add these in as we go. And if you can't find these are in the sewing section. They're not necessarily made like, you know, they're not necessarily in the yarn section or what have you, because they're really, they're meant for, you know, sewing backpacks or what have you, and, you know, they're not for us hookers and such. Anyway, I'm doing, mine are white. They usually make them solid, like white or black are the two most popular colors and such, and I'm sure if you look online you can find them in a different color, depending, you know, on what your bag color is. If you're making this, I hope you're making it. You know, depending on what color. Mine is a green. If I don't even know if the camera's picking up the color that it is. It's kind of like a seafoam green or a light mint green or something. Anywho, moving on. So you'll see I have my yarn, my scrap yarn I'm using as a stitch marker just for the bottom, because once we get higher up we won't need it until the finishing rows. So from here, here's my scrap yarn. So I just finished row 8, so now I'm going to work row 9. I'm going to move my scrap yarn, and we're going to do single crochet for row 9. I'm going to do I'm doing 10 single crochet for row 9, and then I'm going to start to work my tab to add in my strap adjuster for my backpack. So now from here, that's 10, and then you can see, you know, it comes not to the center of the bag, you know. We're gonna work over for the next 5 stitches, and then we'll do single crochet until we add in our next one, what have you. So okay, from here we're gonna make our tabs so that we can attach our strap adjusters. So what you're going to do is you're going to chain 11. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You're going to skip the one closest to the hook, and you're going to work back in a single crochet. So you should have 10 because we did 11 stitches and we're skipping 1. So this is my 10. So from here I'm going to do a single crochet on the bottom row across, and I know that's like the confusing part, is because now you're working up and you're still working across at the same time. So it's a little tricky when you're first learning to do this, you know, this strange technique that I've been doing for a long time. Alright, so but you'll turn it and you'll work back. You'll skip the one you just did, and you'll work back and back up in 10. You'll end up with 10 single crochet, 1 single crochet in each. I mean, this part is a little tricky. You know, if you're new to crochet and you're just trying to learn it, you know, it's not bad once you get the hang of it. You know, once you get the hang of it, anything is easier once you get the hang of it, right? Okay, so you'll chain 1 and you'll work back in a single crochet, and you should have 10. So once you did your 10, you'll go down to across and you'll do a single crochet there, and you'll turn your work again, and this is the last time we're working up. So you'll skip the one that you just did closest to the hook, and we'll work up one more time in 10 single crochet. Alright, you'll chain 1, you'll turn your work, and you work down, and then we'll work across. So I know it's a little tricky to do it this way. So that's my 10, and now I'm gonna continue working across. And if you are off on your count, okay, because I told you I have 86 stitches across, this might be better off eyeballing it, you know, just kind of looking and folding. If you're unsure, you can fold it, lay your bottom piece flat, fold it in half, and mark it with a stitch marker as to where you should start your chain, and and off on your on your stitches, okay? Because this the way I do this, I'm talking while I'm doing it. So that's making it harder for me to make sure that I'm telling it to you properly the way that I do it. But it does work out. I've been doing it this way. I've been making bags for a really long time, since I got very serious about crochet, when I was in my late teens and stuff like that. I've been crocheting. I learned how to knit when I was 9, and I learned how to crochet when I was 11. So I've been doing it for a long time. Not very many people, you might not have been doing it this long or what have you. So, it's a little tricky sometimes when you want something to come out. But you know what? Eyeball it if you're unsure, just to, make sure. And as always, tape measure. And with this part, you want to keep count of your stitches. You want to make sure, keep count of your stitches. You want to make sure that, your stitches match up and stuff like that. If you're unsure, you can always just mark it. If you eyeball it and mark it, because to be honest with you, I could tell you exactly where to put in whatever, but it might still be off, because it's yarn and it shifts and what have you. It still might be off. It might not look right to you. It might not sit right, as far as, you're eyeballing it, and as far as you're concerned. So, all right, so let's do our single crochet. So from here, you're going to work 20 stitches across. Make sure before you start working your second tab that you're even with your first tab, okay? So you work your stitches, and before you start working your tab, lay the piece flat, nice and flat, fold it in half, back to back, and make sure, as far as it's concerned, laid flat, because that's going to give you, eyeballing it like this, you'll have an approximate stitch wise, but eyeballing it, you'll have, a better definite placement for your second tab, your second adjuster, where you're going to put it in. I'm so serious right now. Sorry. I always try and keep these things light, but I hope I'm teaching somebody something, kind of a thing, I hope I'm spreading the knowledge, or making people like excited about playing with yarn and making things and stuff like that. Hopeful. All right, so let me just count here. Here's my bottom stitch from my first tab. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And I'm counting the braids. I'm counting where the braids are. That's what I'm counting. Those are my stitches. So 18, 19, 20, and then I'm gonna chain 11 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to skip the one closest to the hook and turn and do a single crochet working down. So that's my 10. And then from there, I'm going to do a single crochet on the bottom. I'm going to skip that single crochet and work up again, up my little tab. And now it's a little tricky. So I'm skipping this stitch right here, and then I'm going to pick up this in the single crochet for 10 stitches. Chain 1, turn my work, and then work down. You'll skip that chain and you'll work down 10 single crochets till you get to the base. Now when you get to the bottom, you'll do a single crochet at the base of the bag in your next stitch over, and then you'll turn your work again and you'll work 2 more rows up the tab. I hope it's showing. I can't really tell. I'm like, I know I've said this before, but I'm looking through it. I'm on a video camera and I'm looking through a tiny little monitor here, a little tiny screen that's about 3 inches. 3 inches wide and maybe 2 inches. I'm measuring it while I'm on. Oh, under 2 inches. So it's not always so easy for me to see if I'm in frame or what have you. So I do apologize for that, you know, because sometimes my hands move and the tripod does not. Work down again. Now with this, I'm sorry, I'm just chatty. You do lose, let's see, 3, 5. You lose 2 stitches on each tab, so we're gonna put them back in when we come back around, just in case you're like, what the heck, this chick is making me mess this up or whatever. So before I continue this row, I just want to show you that's what that looks like. And it looks funny, right? Like it looks like little rabbit ears or something silly, you know, but this is what it looks like so far. I didn't finish that row, but I just want you to see, as far as that's concerned, they pretty much match up for what we needed to do. They pretty much match up. They're pretty even. So, you know, just to show you. And so we're going to finish working this row, and then we'll come to our little scrap yarn, and then we'll work, and I'll show you how we're going to stick these things on and attach them, you know, at the ends. All right, so you'll finish working. So all right, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna finish working this row, and then I'll start flapping again about how we're attaching this. I'm sorry, I'm so chatty all of a sudden. I guess the caffeine kicked in. No, I'm just kidding. So you'll do a single crochet for the rest of this row, and you'll leave your little tabs will be flapping in the wind here until we work the next row. So this is row 9. If I didn't say it, I'm sure I did, because I talk a lot. So this is row 9, and row 9's in a single crochet, and we made our little tabs for our strap adjusters or what have you. All right, so for row 10, we're gonna add in our strap adjusters. And you also you want to make sure that you did it right, what have you. So I already showed you it folded over, and if you eyeball it, that's fine. It's not too big of a deal, you know. You want to measure it and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so sorry. now that the intense stuff is over, I can put my ring back on. Silly. Okay. Let me move my stitch marker to the front to keep track of my rows. So I'm going to do another row of single crochet, and I'm only going to crochet up to my tab, which should be, what do we say, 10? So now for this, for putting on the stitch adjuster, the strap adjuster, it might be hard to get it through because it's, you know, it's very wide, it's bulky, whatever. So a smaller hook, what size is this? An F. A smaller hook will help you hook on and pull it through. So make sure you're putting it on right. As you know, as far as that's concerned, make sure you're putting it on right. So this is the front of it. That would be the back of it with the little divot, the little dip out of it. So wait, I'm gonna pull that out, and it's gonna go through this second one here, and hopefully, you know, you don't have a problem. But it's bulky. You're pushing a bulkier piece, you know, a chunky yarn through it, you know, where these things are meant for just the nylon slip, you know, the nylon strap or whatever. So if you do have a problem, which that worked out perfectly, it's usually not the case. Usually I have to struggle and yank it like a crazy person. All right, so what you're going to do is you'll make sure that you put it on correctly. You'll make sure, you'll double check and triple check that you make sure you put on both of them on correctly and facing the same direction as far as where the bars are on it, because I've done that before where I've put one on backwards and didn't realize and just worked the whole bag and was like, I cannot believe I did that. I was so upset over it, because stuff like that, I'm like, oh, I have to pull this out and whatever. I cannot leave this like this. All right, so that's where these things come in handy. If you need it, you know, you could just pin that sucker on just for now. You could pin that on for now, and your second one, so that you know that they're both facing the right way and all that kind of stuff. All right, so what you're going to do, you did your 10 crochet, your 10 single crochet. You're going to go through the end of the tab. I feel I should zoom in. I'm sorry. I feel like you should, I don't know, see closer. All right, so you'll go into that and you'll go through, you're going through row 8 where the half double crochets are for this, and you'll pull up and you'll single crochet. And because remember I told you we took away 2 stitches because this is 5 single crochet wide, you only went down and picked up 3 single crochet from your row. I hope this is making sense. I feel like I'm jabbering and it's not making sense. All right, anyway, for each row that's here, 5 rows, you're going to go in and pick up a stitch from row, really row 8. If you're going through row 9, that's okay, but really it's row 8. So 1, 2, I'm catching the tab and I'm going through. 3, oops, and it's hard, a little hard. 4, and then make sure you catch your end. 5. All right, so we just added back our 2 stitches and we added back the 3 that we used up. So we added all of our stitches back. All right, so then you'll just go back to working the single crochet across the row, and I said it was 20 when we added in the tabs. So if you have the same count as me, I'm going to zoom out because you don't need to see it that closely. So you'll work across in your single crochet until you get to your second tab, and then we'll do the same thing we just did. Alright, so I'm at my second tab, and I'm going to remove my stitch marker. I'm going to get it out of my way, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to go through the end of the stitch and pick up 5 stitches, one for each row that we did, and that's picking up through row 8. And as you know, on the last one, as close as you can get it to the edge of your tab is the best. Is better, you know. All right, so to show you, so now just to show you, sorry, I keep hitting the camera. It's on a tripod next to my leg. But that's what that looks like. And these will be on a slant because we're working, you know, to the right. To the left, we're working right-handed. So that's what that'll look like now that we put our strap adjusters on. We got our little loops in and all that kind of thing, and we took away stitches, but we added our stitches back in for row 10. So you'll finish working this row in a single crochet till you get to your scrap yarn or your stitch marker, whatever you're using. So I mean, if you're, you know, keeping up to what I'm doing, you know, paused and all that kind of thing and whatever. So far we're doing good, you know. We got the bottom of our bag done. We got our tabs done with our strap adjusters attached. And hopefully everything is even and laying flat, or, you know, the way you want it to look. And we're doing good as far as I'm concerned. Something else to just, I always like to give you tips and things like that. Things to look out for and stuff, you know. If you are using a scrap yarn as a stitch marker and it starts going like crazy, then your count is off. You know, you might have extra stitch, or you might be missing stitches as far as the pattern's concerned, or you're counting, you know, maybe you're a little distracted or something and your counting is off as you're going. So just a side note or whatever, you know, if your scrap yarn is not going up pretty much in a straight line, you're either adding stitches or losing stitches, or your count is a little, you know, distracted and your count's off. So just something, you know, if you're a newbie, you know, you might be thinking like, oh, what's going on? You know, but it happens to me, and I've been crocheting for a long time, so it happens to everybody. So from here, we're going to do one more row of single crochet, and it's more or less just to catch a count, to make sure that you're still where you were before that you added your tabs in. So just to make sure that you caught all the stitches, you picked up all the stitches you were supposed to pick up, and all of that kind of thing. So for row 11, you'll move your stitch marker or your scrap yarn or what have you, and you'll work one row of single crochet and try and catch a count of how many stitches you actually have going here. Okay, so I come up with 88, which I actually knew already that I had added in an extra 2 stitches. And I'm actually going to drop those stitches by crocheting 2 together. Okay, so I'll do that on the edge, not a catastrophe or any kind of thing. Adding in the tabs did, you know, throw off our whole count and the way we were doing beforehand. All right, so now part 1 is done, which is the bottom of the bag. We got our tabs on with our strap adjusters, and they're attached nice and steady. I had 86 stitches, so I'm back to 86 stitches. Hopefully that's what you had. So that concludes part 1 of the mesh backpack that in cotton that we're lining and all that kind of thing. All right, so I hope you come back for part 2, and you'll see an extended version of this in its entirety. Probably take, you know, be an extra long video, whatever, but this was part 1, and so we'll move on to part 2, which is doing the mesh and then switching over to do the top part. So thank you so much for watching. Come back for part 2, and you know, as always, K Bella Jolie, K Jolie Crochet Basics, and you know, happy hooking because it keeps you off the streets and all of that good stuff. And I hope you subscribe and come back for part 2. And or if you're watching, you know, or if you're watching the extended version, you know, I hope you like what you're watching, and I hope you're making it along with me. Have a super great day.